I am here today with scholar Liz O'Connor, who has written an article about a Ulysses character you might not remember, named Lizzie Twigg, but who I am very interested in. Welcome, Liz, to the Blooms and Barnacles podcast. How are you today?
I am doing okay.
Great.
This very rainy morning here.
All right.
I am a literature professor at a small college on the Eastern Shore of Maryland in the States called Washington College, where I teach a range of modernism and 20th century British and Irish literature. And I've actually been working on Lizzie Twigg since I was in grad school more than 10 years ago. And I'm very excited to talk to you about her today.
I am so excited to have you here. So really quick, just in case our listeners don't remember, in Ulysses, who is Lizzie Twigg?
So Lizzie Twigg shows up in Lestrygonians, where she might be walking with A.E. Bloom sees her a couple times. He talks about her baggy stockings, and he uncharacteristically shows a lot of distaste for her. There's a couple clues in the episode that this might be because she rejected his epistolary advances because she was very excited that A.E. had shown an interest in her poetry.
Okay. Yeah, I think she shows up twice. Once like in Bloom's thoughts, where he remembers her kind of overly professional response to what we can assume is kind of a pervy letter in answer to a job posting, that's weird on Bloom's part. We got to call him out for that. And then he sees a woman, it's walking with AE, and we don't really know her identity.
No.
You know, it's easy to kind of breeze past it. And what is interesting to me is it seems like that's kind of the attitude that scholars had. I know there were a couple very well-known Joyce scholars, one Zach Bowen and another, I believe, Robert Adams, both of them who said, I couldn't even believe she was a real person, which is an astounding statement to me because so many people are real in Ulysses. And it turns out she was a real person. But she's so minor in Ulysses. So here's an intentionally leading question. Why should we care about Lizzie Twigg?
Well, I mean, I was always very interested in her. I have an interest in women characters who are overlooked. And I think there are a lot of women characters scattered throughout the novel, of course. Gertie McDowell, Prue, of course, Molly has a key role, but there are minor ones too. And I really think it's interesting because Lizzie Twigg is one of the very few women of letters that are included in the novel, right? And you talked, and I mentioned very briefly that the text states that it might be Lizzie Twigg. There's not many people that have written about this, but one or two have mentioned that it actually might have been Susan Mitchell, who was with AE because she was kind of well known to work with him and have a kind of less than prim and proper appearance. And Lizzie Twigg, by the very small accounts that we can garner, Padraig Colum's essay being the main one, and also that photo, doesn't appear to fit that bill. But she was a poet, and she was relatively successful for a short period of time.
Can I ask you real quick, could you tell us just a little more about Susan Mitchell? I think she was also a contemporary of Joyce's, though I don't know if she's in Ulysses.
I don't think she is, actually. She's not in Ulysses, because I had searched for that when I was in the thick of this many years ago now, actually. But she was a little older, and she was a well-known figure in Dublin at the time. She was a co-editor, I believe. I might be slightly confused on those details, but she worked with AE, and she was a well-known associate of AE.
And that is a key detail, as we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Lizzie
Yeah.
Twigg is not known to have really associated much with AE at all.
Right, which is one thing I really liked in your article. Now, I don't think I mentioned this at the top, but how I ended up talking to Liz was I emailed her because I was looking for a copy of her article about Lizzie Twigg, which is just fantastic. Like such a obviously very small character in Ulysses, so there's not a lot of info about her, as we've said several times. But your article, which was in the James Joyce Quarterly, is entitled "The Space Between Fiction and Reality: Uncovering the Real Lizzie Twigg," and I would say the definitive Joycean article on Lizzie Twigg, because as you pointed out, there aren't many others, and the other major scholars who wrote about her were surprised she existed.
Yeah.
And mostly remark on her funny name, which, I mean, people's senses of humor have changed over time because reading about her in the context of like, well, clearly Joyce was just interested because her name is hilarious. I guess it is. Um, anyway, so as you said, Lizzie was a woman of letters. She was a working poet in Dublin at that time. Can you tell us a little bit about her poetic career? She was a contemporary of Joyce's, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, they were born within months of each other. She was born in India. Her father was in the British military. And then when she was a baby, her mother died and they returned back to Ireland. And he actually married a woman from Cork who was a Catholic, and they settled in Limerick. But she was quite well known. She published 17 poems in the United Irishmen in 1903. And then in 1904, her collection, Songs and Poems, was released. It had a very lengthy introduction by Canon Sheehan, who was well-known literary figure, weirdly enough, at the time. And there were many positive reviews, both throughout Ireland, in England, and in the US, because it was also published in New York a couple months later in 1905. And she did go on to publish a couple other poems in shorter collections, but for the most part, that was her major publication. And there is an event that appears to have happened in 1903 that kind of removed her from the pages of the United Irishmen and appears to have led to her to return to Limerick. And I'm not exactly sure when she left Dublin and went back to Limerick, because I'm going by census records, right? And they're not every year. But by, I think it was 1910, she was back in Limerick. She never married. She was very active in housing reform there and in the church. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about that secret meeting in the Martello Tower? Or?
Do I ever? Yeah.